Have you ever wondered where certain personality traits come from? Why are some people so optimistic, while others are more friendly or organized? Why are some people more ambitious, active, or known as risk takers? For many centuries, scientists have looked for an explanation for these differences in personality traits. This brings us to the nature versus nurture debate, or more specifically, do genes or the environment influence personality more? The origins of the nature versus nurture debate date back to thousands of years and across many cultures. The Greek philosopher Galen theorized that personality traits were the result of a person's relative concentrations of four bodily fluids, blood, etc., or nature. Meanwhile, philosopher John Locke was well known for the theory that children are born a blank slate, with their traits developing completely from experience and learning. So, nature or genes refer to hereditary components of DNA. These genes are passed down from parents, and these characteristics would be considered inherited. Genes are also known as the pre-wiring in a person. On the other hand, nurture or the environment is the influence of external factors. These characteristics would be due to exposure, experience, and learning. Therefore, one's environment has a greater influence on personality than genes because of conditioning, conformity, and observational learning. Although genes do have a considerable effect on how one behaves, the environment has greater influence on personality because of conditioning. There are two types of conditioning, operant and classical. Classical conditioning is learning through the process of association. Operant conditioning, on the other hand, relies on the law of effect. If behavior results in a satisfying effect, then people are more likely to do it again. Operant conditioning has shown to influence personality more. For example, if someone complimented a peer and got no response, then they are less likely to compliment a peer again. This results in not being as outgoing or nice in general. Furthermore, people act, and the response their action receives, or the environment, shapes personality. In the book The Dependent Gene, David Moore makes a strong argument for the fact that personality is in fact influenced by the environment. Throughout the book, he provides studies and examples for how even though genes do influence personality, it is one's environment that has greater influence. One of the most significant studies that Moore provides is a study done by a team of researchers led by Michael Meaney and Moush Saif at McGill University. These researchers watched how rat mothers interacted with their babies, or what type of environment these rats were raised up in. They discovered that some mothers naturally licked and groomed their baby rats more than other mothers did. Additionally, it was uncovered that baby rats that were licked and groomed more when they were younger were less stressed as adults when put in mildly stressful situations. In order to ensure that this was because of their environment and upbringing, the scientists cross-fostered the baby rats. This way, mother rats that did not lick and groom as much took care of baby rats born to mothers that licked and groomed a lot, and vice versa. What they found was that it didn't matter what type of mother rat a certain rat was born to, but rather experience after they were born. This supports the thesis, as lack of maternal love earlier on in life makes it harder for rats to deal with stress later on. For baby rats that were licked and groomed earlier on, mothers nurtured in stressful situations, so these rats associated stress with a comforting action from the mother. Thus, they were more capable to deal with stress later on. Similarly, in an hour-long documentary-style episode of The Horizon, Michael Mosley explores happiness as a personality trait. Michael Mosley set out to see if he could be engineered into cheering up. Mosley was a generally pessimistic person and wanted to be happier.
What's the problem? I don't know.
At the University of Essex, he found out that the right side of his brain was more active than the left side. Mosley then went through positivity training at least 3 times a week over a 7-week period. During this, he was asked to pick out the happy faces in a crowd. He came back a few weeks later to find that his brain activity was more balanced on each side, and that he was generally happier. What he realized was that the program conditioned him to look for happy faces on the train ride to work. This allowed him to stay happier throughout the day. Michael Mosley's experience supports the fact that the environment influences personality more, as just a few weeks of conditioning led him to be happier. Thus, if genes did in fact influence personality more, then we would not have gotten these results. Personality is also greater influenced by the environment because of conformity. Conformity is a type of social influence involving a change in belief or behavior in order to fit in with a group. This change is in response to real or imagined group pressure. Real pressure involves the physical presence of others, and imagined group pressure involves the pressure of social norms or expectations. Social norms are unwritten rules about how one should behave. They answer the question of what is acceptable in society. An article written by Saul McLeod in 2015 titled Nature versus Nurture in Psychology discussed the influence of social roles on personality. A key quote from the article is, "With each social role you adopt, your behavior changes to fit the expectations both you and others have of that role. So, we want to fit in, so we change our personalities to make sure that we do." McLeod provides Zimbardo's Stanford prison experiment as evidence for this claim. The study aimed to investigate how readily people would conform to the roles of guard and prisoner in a role-playing exercise that simulated prison life. Zimbardo converted a basement of the Stanford University Psychology Building into a mock prison. A total of 21 men were put through the simulation, consisting of 10 prisoners and 11 guards. Prisoners were treated like every other criminal, and guards were instructed to do whatever they thought was necessary to maintain law and order. Within the first few hours, both guards and prisoners were settling into their new roles, with the guards adopting theirs quickly and easily. It was concluded that people will readily conform to the social roles they are expected to play, especially if the roles are as strongly stereotyped as those of prison guards. Overall, we play different social roles every day, and our personality is mainly shaped by what social roles we're playing. Finally, personality is greater influenced by the environment than genes because people learn through observation. It's important to understand the social learning theory. This theory states that children observe the people around them. It's pretty simple. Models are individuals that are observed. Children pay attention to some of these models and imitate their behavior. Models can include anyone, from parents to celebrities to siblings. In The Parent Trap, Annie and Hallie are twins that were separated at birth because their parents divorced. They met each other by chance at a summer camp, and although they looked the same, their personalities were very different.
Don't you see it? See what? The resemblance between us.
The Parent Trap clearly illustrates how the environment significantly influences one's personality. Annie was raised in England by her mother and is portrayed to be much more proper, polite, patient, and mature.
We travelled all the way from London for this.
It's rather picturesque.
Interpersonal relationships, such as influence from her mom, the environment around her, is also a contributing factor to Annie's personality, as when her dad meets her, he states that she reminds her of her mom. Meanwhile, Hallie was raised in California by her father, and is childish, immature, and short-tempered.
Well, your eyes are much closer together than mine. Your ears, well, don't worry, you'll grow into them.
Hallie's personality also developed from the environment around her, as she is probably not accustomed to observing as many proper and polite people in California compared to England. The fact that Hallie and Annie have very different personalities, even though they have the same genetic makeup, is a clear sign pointing towards the environment influencing personality more. All in all, throughout the movie, the twins showcase personality traits similar to the parent that raised them. This relates also to the idea of conformity, as their environments would influence them to act a certain way to be acceptable. For example, people in England are stereotypically very polite, so Annie's polite as well. Many people believe that genes influence personality more because they are what causes people to experience different things. In the textbook Social and Personality Development by David Schaefer, he stands by this argument. One example he uses is parents and children playing sports. He states that if a parent is genetically predisposed to be athletic, then there would be a greater chance of the parent enforcing sports in their household. Additionally, since parents pass down genes, the child may also have the athletic ability to participate in these sports as well. Since the child is playing these sports, he or she may develop certain personality traits such as being an extrovert or being competitive. However, even though genes cause the parent and the child to be able to play the sports, the child's upbringing in a family that values sports is what ultimately shapes the child's personality. Thus, the observational learning throughout the child's childhood would lead to the development of these specific personality traits. Despite other arguments that genes influence personality, it is clear that the environment influences personality more. One's environment has greater influence on their personality than genes because of associating certain results with traits, the need to fit in, and the social learning theory.